Welcome to week 2 of our Shakespeare class. And I just have to say how delighted I am with everything that I've seen in the week 1 forums, especially the Friday forums where I got to answer some questions. That's kind of the way that I hope to kind of roll forward since we can't do the regular sort of full classroom Q&A. That Friday moment will be for me to illuminate any questions that you might have. And just for a place for us to visit, sort of a low stakes forum as opposed to some of the forums that have higher stakes. What I really loved about watching your guys' responses to 12th Night was like you were talking about how well you got it based on that audio with the commentary. Now, the good news was that we had that audio and that commentary, and it explains to you sort of my philosophy of how we get into Shakespeare on our own authentically. So just to say, I'm not a huge fan of like lecture modality and this pontificating English major blowhards up in front, standing in between me. So this is I got this prejudice when I was a student. I just wanted to read the work and I wanted to encounter it. I wanted to be asked questions and I wanted to interact. But I did have a number of blowhard instructor professor types who wanted to tell me everything. Now, as we listen to that commentary in there, it doesn't have that blowhard quality. We actually need it. We can't really understand it unless we have that. And good luck. That's the only audio that I have coming that's like that, unless something else turns up to share. In fact, our next play, which I won't even foreshadow, but we have some audio versions, and I don't even think we have the Globe version for that one. I'll try to look around and find something else for that one, but we got to do it this way. And my apologies not to distract us from the fine work of talking about 12th Night, which is what I want to talk about. And even a play like 12th Night features some of those reasons why Shakespeare continues to be adored by everyone. There's a kind of richness and a lot of, if let's say that you're looking through this and you're sort of summarizing the plot to yourself, you're thinking, well, I've seen filmic narrative or dramatic narrative that is as complicated as that. That is probably true because now our contemporary movies can be as complicated. Until Shakespeare, they weren't. That's it. They just did not have that beeline, and they didn't have that. These like competing, interweaving stories. Look at 12th Night. We have the two twins, Viola and Sebastian, separated from the waves. And that separation leads us to the Viola thread, where she gets off with Orsino. And then as soon as we're in the Orsino thread, now we have the Olivia thread. Meanwhile, we've got the Sebastian thread. And let us just say the Sebastian Antonio thread. These are entirely sort of different competing narratives. We have one play and multiple narratives. And there I go, kind of lecturing. I don't want to lecture. What I want to do is throw you into a sandbox playpen of William Shakespeare and for you to encounter these ideas. Obviously, there needs to be a little bit of, not necessarily translation, but certainly some introduction, and I think that the audio version gave us more than enough. So we have that. But we know that there are a variety of different sources out there. We'll give that background to us. And, dare I say, should one get really stuck, The Wikipedia articles on any one of these plays offer really good plot summary, but as you know, and as I mentioned in my first, not exactly a lecture, it's just the week overview. That's all we're doing here. I'm trying to, I want, like I came kicking and screaming to Shakespeare in my first video. I talked to you how like I didn't get it until I got it. And that's the kind of getting it that I want you to have. I want you to have that sort of internal sense of an appreciation for Shakespeare that there's just like, I don't know, I haven't ever written something that's got so many characters, so many different plot lines. It is remarkably textured. The texture of it to this day. Oh, you know what it is? I'm just saying that because there's that much texture, I've been teaching this play for 10 years, and every single time I go back to it, I reread it, I re-enjoy it. I re-enjoy it. Slight! Gosh, I about die when Toby says that. And bear in mind, I am still using my method of listening and reading at the same time. I love it. But as that one group with Toby is watching Malvolio read this letter, and Toby's over there talking about like, oh, I'm gonna bash in your head. What? Why don't you think that, Malvolio? Oh man, it's just it's such a treasure and a delight. But in the spirit of small lecture, I won't point out too many of these things, but I will just say that Shakespeare's frequently working with symmetry. And I'll be honest, I haven't like Googled up like Shakespeare and symmetry. That's just some word that I'm using, and it's the one that sort of makes sense for me when I think about just the symmetries that happen. There's a lot of symmetry in these productions, and to be honest, the best and most classic symmetry that I can think of is actually in a play we're not looking at this term. It's called King Lear, but in it, ungrateful children, destroy a parent twice. Like we have one thread where ungrateful children are destroying a parent, then we have an interweaving thread where ungrateful children are destroying a parent. It's one ungrateful child. And in this one, we do have these parallel moments because we have the symmetry of Orsino being rebuffed by Olivia, strangely symmetrical to the advance of Antonio toward Sebastian. And sometimes I think about how like over the top that relationship is. It's a homosexual love affair, and suddenly Sebastian seems to be done with it, and he's getting on with his life. That was a dalliance, sort of like some college time experimentation or something. I don't know what. In the Globe production we're going to look this week, they seem to squelch that vibe there, but they do pick it up a little bit in our audio version, and it's in the text. You can't change the text. So that's just one example of a plot-based piece of symmetry, and you see them throughout this play. So notice them. Like, I don't know, I could dig them up and crawl them out and trot them before you, and they would make a list. We all learn different ways. Maybe you do learn from PowerPoint lists and things like that. I tend not to. I also don't tend to assess for PowerPoint lists. What I assess for, especially with our midterm and our final, is kind of a rich, deep understanding. That's what I'm looking for. For those higher contracts, we actually do a verbal debrief, and it's like an oral exam. And I get to know what you're up to. Do not do the oral exam on that C contract at all, so don't panic. But for the higher levels, there is some conversation. I want to know how deep the learning got. But listen, I wanted to talk more about symmetry. We got one more line, because the symmetry is not just in the plot structures, but it's in the lines. So Shakespeare loves symmetry and plot, and he also loves symmetrical structures. And there are super famous symmetrical structures that I can't even think of right now, but when I re-experience the place, boom, they smack me in the face. This is not necessarily a boom level smack me in the face symmetrical structure, but it is kind of beautiful. And now I have to find it on this page. It's Viola, and Sir Toby and Fabian are, this is that moment where Sir Toby and Fabian are trying to set up this, again, a prank, kind of, which also parallels with the prank that they're doing against Malvolio. I mean, it's almost like there's never just one of a thing. In Shakespeare, there's always multiple iterations of it, often symmetrical or sometimes opposite or mirror images of one another. And in that sentence level structures, the line readings, those are also either symmetrical or in many, often actually more mirror images or opposites in an interesting way. And this one falls into that category. This is a line I'm reading from a physical book, which I did not force you guys to buy. Had I asked you guys to buy this one, it would have been $1 bazillion. Literally, the price $1 bazillion. It's not $1 bazillion. But I used to use it, and it was $1 bazillion. Okay, so, see, I got that clowny thing going, or that fool thing going. I wish I could speak truth to power as beautifully as the fool in this play. I mean, so easily distracted. We're still on symmetry, and we're still getting back to this line. So let's just do it. You see, wouldn't it be fun if we were in a class? Because we just go everywhere. That's what I like to do. Back to the line, right? Okay, thanks for reminding me. All right. This is as uncivil as strange, says Viola, dressed as Cesario, right? And, there she is with a sword. I beseech you, do me this courteous office, as to know of the knight what my offense to him is. Beautiful, and we haven't gotten to the symmetrical piece. The symmetrical piece is right here. It is something of my negligence, nothing of my purpose. And that's that sort of symmetrical structures that you see. We have a setup, and then boom, some kind of like, it's very poetic. So without being a full sonnet, as we saw in that fantastic little 7-minute video from the first week, which was just last week. But to watch for those. And so I'm not out there, like counting up the facts, the 1564. That's an important date. I'm not even going to, what is it? What's the important date? This is an important date, right? Okay. See, there's more of them. There's more important dates. It's really just a handful. There are so few, but again, I just would run screaming from dates. So I'm not even going to play dates with you. Although at some point we are going to look at the order of these plays, and I am coming up with that assignment. May appear this week. Wish I could say I'd already I put a bunch of stuff in this week. Gotta balance a lot. I don't want to burn you out. It's like I'm just, I'm thoughtful. I don't know how much I'm thinking about your time. That's all. So we talked about symmetry. We talked about the symmetry between Sebastian and Antonio. You're going to run into symmetry now. I know that because I have mentioned it. I had another note that I took while I too was experiencing the plays, and I just wanted to I sort of just mentioned actually that parallel structure between this pranking nature. And of course, our audio talks about Toby as the Lord of Misrule and this vibe that we get on Twelfth Night and its connection to the Saturnalia. And again, I don't want you to be overwhelmed with like encyclopedia details. What we're really looking at is the beauty of the line here. If it's printed on the page, if it's in the heart of the characters, that's what I privilege. And what I say is that the rest follows. As soon as we know who wants what from whom, we know Shakespeare. And the rest of those details are stuff that we can look up on Wikipedia or in an encyclopedia or whatever. It doesn't matter. But the hard part, I'm just doing the hardest thing with you, which is getting you inside their heads. And our narrator of those comments also talks about how well he knew people. And he did. And that was exceptional. And by the way, that level of, sort of piercing intuition about the hearts of humanity, it's still unique. Like, he's still the best, and he's still the best for these reasons. I'm going to share with you this is a little lecture-y. It's the kind of lecture-y thing that I would say. But I mean, in terms of a dramatic representation of the inside of people, we can compare Shakespeare's ability to show that inside with a recent movie. It's actually a television show called Breaking Bad, and there is a character in it by the name of Jesse. Now, we see Jesse as a kind of thuggish sort of drug dealer, but the filmic technique that they use he's always acting, he's always breaking laws, he's always sort of a bad person. But there's a moment in one of the early episodes when he's a low-level drug dealer where a green scarab beetle sort of crawls up on his foot. It's shimmering there in the sun. It's green. And he's just watching it. And, of course, it sort of just crawls off of his shoe, and he sort of helps it off safely, and it's going to walk away. And a moment later, one of his little thuggy drug dealer people comes up and crushes it. And that is how cinema now, rich cinema, by the way, Breaking Bad is probably the best of all the series that are out there right now. So let's see, what is that meme? Prove me wrong. It is, that one. Anyway, it is the best. And it's the best because of the vision that it gives us and the inside psychology of people and features of themselves that they don't even really know or understand, as is the case in Jesse, who thinks he's bad, and he's actually really good. So Shakespeare had that ability. He had that ability, and that's why we continue to read and adore him. And I don't know, I just want to, like, on our Friday Q&A, I want to talk about what did you guys think about this tremendous prank that they played? Do they go too far with Malvolio? Does he deserve it? One of my favorite lines, I'm like just the worst at memorizing all the lines, but it's because it's not my thing. But earlier in the play, this sort of to justify the later later prank that they're going to play, Toby says, "Dost thou think that because you are virtuous, there shall be no cakes and ale?" And of course, they're talking about Malvolio's Protestantism, and the play really sends it up. It sends it up. And by the way, so I've read all these biographies, and as soon as I say that, I could start talking about all the controversy about Shakespeare's religion. And I could be talking about how Elizabeth was moving the country away from Catholicism as far as she could, considering that her predecessor, her sister, who had previously been queen for a little while, converted and was Catholic, and Philip of Spain, whatever. We were just too tight. They had a war after that with Spain to kind of really get rid of that whole thing. And Spain felt so entitled to England because of Mary that they decided to come and invade militarily, and England replied by whooping them in the Channel. But anyway, so let's take a look at the links we're going to be working with this week in our Moodle. The one after this video is Melinda's amazing transcription of the Globe Tour audio, which I can't even believe you did, Melinda. So just that's a big shout out in the video. It's fantastic. It's really, so consider that a piece of study material, because questions related to that will surely be on the midterm. And I know I say I don't like, a bunch of lecture and stuff like that, but I mean, that's pretty tight. So there are a lot of facts. They are relatively encyclopedic, but they're important too. Like for instance, this week we're going to be looking at a Globe Theater production and the fact that you now have way more information about the Globe Theater than I had when I was an undergrad. By the way, you'll notice, I can't even remember which piece of material it is. Oh, it's actually Melinda's amazing transcription of the Globe Tour audio. They talk about how that thing didn't get finished until 98. 98, and I was an undergrad in the early 80s, and all they used to talk about was like, well, we've only got one drawing of something that we think might have been. It was terrible. It was awful. And they had the one drawing, and we couldn't see it, because where was it? They would just talk about the one drawing that nobody could see. It wasn't even in the book. Honestly, I kid you not. And now, not only that, we have the actual, what they call the Globe 3. They don't even, and I think that our tour guide on that tour is calling it the Globe 3 or the Third Globe or whatever she calls it, because she doesn't want to call it a simulacrum or what happened? It's Friday, kids. My vocabulary is out. But she doesn't want to diminish it. It is a globe. It is a functional theater. There are tickets. It's the real thing. It's literally the third iteration of the globe, and it's not a fake globe. It is the third real globe. So that's her point. I guess I was there. She didn't belabor it much, but when I re-listened to that audio, she was calling it the third, and they don't even make much ado about it. So. All right, article about Antonio and Sebastian. And that's just, again, I was talking about that parallelism earlier, and that is a bit, that's sort of this pursuer, pursued, rejection. And of course, even this article doesn't go into like how it's awful what happens to Antonio, and there's really no resolution. I mean, like if somebody's looking for kind of a flaw in this play, that's it. It isn't resolved really. So then we have our annotated version, our annotatable version. We have the audio again, and I'm going to open up our due Tuesday, which is actually an assignment. And that's an assignment where, I'm opening it up, my machine is going really slowly. You will add some of the audio, your favorite bits of audio to acts. So at the very least, you will be adding one kind of commentary annotation in our annotatable version as a comment on the right side. Just you highlight sort of the area where you want to put the comment, and then you're going to paraphrase that instructive moment that was your favorite. Like you were really happy, like that made it. Like, listen, watching your guys' comments this week showed me how important that document is, the audio document. You said somebody wrote, I couldn't have made it through. I couldn't have made it through without those kind of interruptions. And so what I'm just asking you to do is to one, how does this work for you? It just helps you get back in there into both of the materials to dig around, and it'll stick. So that's why it's good for you. And why it's good for me in the class is that you will add those to this document. And I've been using this for a long time. Students seem to like reading one another's comments and things. And actually our materials moving forward will include a lot more comments. And of course, the comments are not always great. But those comments are all great. They are quite vetted. Anyway, so you'll see the due Tuesday annotate. And what you'll do is you'll write it in a Google Doc, and then you'll download it and upload it into here, or however that works exactly. Anyway, it'll be clear as you do it. I'm going to head back to the main class page so that I can just look at the next link. That was a due. When was that due? That was a due Tuesday. So there's a due Thursday link. And let us look at that. So it is another link. And it's the Globe Theater production. Thank you. So that was fun. I totally didn't forget. That's Friday. What a hard week. You can see it's it is a bizarre time. You know what? All we can do is have fun with it. Do Thursday Globe production. I cannot believe we have the Globe production. It's breathtaking. It is breathtaking, and what it does is it literally puts us in the feet of people who are watching these productions in 1600 or 1601 or whenever, because there are men playing the female roles, because even though they were on the outside, as our tour guide mentions, that we were in sort of a less lawful or just a more fun area of London. We're sort of outside beyond the strictest of their laws. They didn't violate this. Even the theater people just, they weren't comfortable with that. So they weren't comfortable with having females play females on the stage. It's too objectifying. You get that. And in our commentary for this play, she did that chronology about Cromwell taking over the theaters and shutting them down in about 1640. Please pardon my stupid phone, but it's like the week, and I'm available to all of my students, and they text constantly. So that went from, I don't know, like 1640 to 1660, and then she describes how the theaters reopened and they became kind of more dignified. And why were they more dignified? Because the one big book of plays that they had to kind of get going with. And she spends a bunch of time talking about, like, they weren't in love with that, they rewrote them. That is true, but it was like the one big book of plays that they had. And so they did start to get performed at that time. So, and this is the way people who follow, it's just like nerd battles. It's just, nerd battles. And who's the bigger Shakespeare nerd? I'm not. I don't even compete. Although I have read a ton of biographies of Shakespeare and have learned that this is yet another piece where there is conflicting information. Certainly his popularity did dip, but there are certain sources that say he was, never forgotten in that way that she says. And by she, I'm talking about the narrator of our audio of Twelfth Night. And then, so let us just go back one over here, and we'll look at what's happening on Friday. And of course, this is that Friday Q&A with me, where I'll get to answer all of the questions. And then I will also post here the next play. You can get started reading it over the weekend. And then I'm trying to do one play over 2 weeks. So that one we started a little later last week, but we should be able to do a play every 2 weeks. We're doing this one a week and a half, really, because I just sort of let you know about this one. But I think that that's good. So that is my phone again. And listen, this is going to be what it is. It's just the overview. Welcome to week 2. Hope you have a great time. Have a great weekend. Have a good week. It's my weekend. You're seeing this on Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Okay.